right, we'll go ahead and get started. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this next edition of the NIRSA Ideas in Motion virtual roundtables. My name is Matthew Altendorf. I am from The Ohio State University, and I'm really honored to be helping co-facilitate this presentation along with some other awesome colleagues. We are focusing today on student professional development. We know this is kind of the second round that we have hosted this, and so we know there's been a lot of need for some talk about remote student work and what does student employment look like in this time. And so we look forward to kind of helping conquer some of those challenges today, or at least attempting to, and then also getting up to some other new topics that we have in store. So I want to start by introducing some of the other people that we have with us. So I'll introduce you to Chrissy.
Hi everyone, or hi again everyone. I'm Chrissy. If you were watching last week, 2 weeks ago, roundtable with Earl and Matthew, I was there as well. I'm from UC Berkeley, and I oversee staff training and development for our student and non-student employees. So welcome to the West Coasters. And then also on the call today are, so Chet Miller. Go ahead, Chet, and chime in. Looks like he's.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Training and Development Coordinator at UCLA, and I'm happy to help out today with a little bit of this.
All right. And Dottie, are you here?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Dottie Brown. I am the Coordinator for Operations at Ohio University.
All right. And Greg, are you here?
Yes. I'm Greg Reinhardt at the University of Utah, and I oversee student leadership and development.
Awesome.
Awesome. We thank you all for being here. Chet, Dottie, and Greg will be helping us out a little bit later as we get into breakout rooms, which is something we're going to be trying for the first time here, so hang with us. But I want to go over a few general reminders. You may have seen these in other sessions you've been in, but just a reminder that this session will be recorded. So the great things that you're sharing out in this session will be saved for all posterity on the NIRSA website. But also you can point some of your colleagues to go check out some of the great resources that are already recorded there. And we'll also be saving the chat that is included in this video to that website as well. Please make sure that throughout you stay muted unless you are having something to say. We may at some points, if you put something in chat, we may ask you if you feel comfortable sharing to actually unmute yourself and share out with the rest of the group. If you don't feel comfortable that way, feel free to keep chatting in the chat box. There's also a raise your hand feature that you can use. I believe you can do that by the controls you have at the bottom of your screen. That'll give us an idea that you have something to say. As always, check out the NIRSA Connect website. During this time, there's been so many great resources that have been shared out. So that's a great starting point from some of these conversations. But if you can't find what you're looking for, there's always the forums that you can also talk to other colleagues. And then we also want to promote that there are 2 newly scheduled NIRSA coffee hours. So we realize with the NIRSA annual conference not being able to happen this year, you may be missing out on reconnecting with a lot of your colleagues across the field. And so these coffee hours are just an unstructured way to socialize and say hi to the people that you may be missing at this time. We also want to take a second, and as I know many of you have already been doing it, but we want to have you put in the chat box who you are, what institution you're from, and yeah, kind of get to know who we have here.
Wow, so exciting. Welcome everyone. And right now we're at about 250 participants, which is amazing. So exciting. 251, it just keeps going up. I think I just saw something from Southern Miss. Shout out, did my GA ship there. Gosh, so exciting, everyone. It's going so fast, I can't really keep up. But I see a lot of NorCal love, someone from Sonoma State, Ryan Fitzpatrick, hello. University of Toledo. Oh, to the top, yes, hi Jason. Okay, so I think we can head to our next slide. Perfect. So important today also is just remembering that everyone's opinions matter. All ideas are here and they're welcome. And then we're having an informal conversation today about virtual student development and training. So as we're all moving online. So also remember, we said this last time, student staff development is not a one-size-fits-all approach. You know, I know that there's people who are in specific capacities like Matthew and myself regarding student staff training and development, but there also are a lot of us who have that as a part of a larger capacity that we already have within our various units. So, you know, as we're having this conversation, we're mindful that, you know, there's different bandwidths of availability for student staff training and development, but we also want to note that, you know, no matter what type of organization you're in, what type of capacity you have, there are easy ways to just plug and play within the student staff training and development space.
So I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you all as the participants what you're hoping to get out of this. I know we've kind of set some parameters that we want to at least at first talk about what remote work looks like during this time, especially for student employees and what they can get out of this. We also want to know what do you think we should be talking about today? So if you don't mind, start putting some of your thoughts in the chat box, and we may have a few of you share out to kind of learn more.
I like this one from Eric Becker. Student engagement initiatives, how to keep in touch without overburdening them. Yes, always on top of my mind. Being inspired, yes. Oh, I love this one. Helping seniors if they need help job searching and transition. Yes. How are we supporting our graduating seniors?
I see something about student development theory. While we may not get into the really detailed nitty-gritty of student development theory, I think there definitely is some space to share what are some of the major ones you lean on. Yeah. Andy talking about end of year celebrations. I think that's something we'll hopefully touch on in our breakout rooms as well. Seniors, this is a tough time in the job search area. Something we want to talk about. How do we help wrap up students' experiences? If they are leaving us, we might not even see them again. So how do we help them find closure?
Something new. Yes, looking for something new. Starting to exhaust our resources to keep the student staff engaged and be able to pay them to work from home. Yes, all things I think we'll be touching on in some capacity today. And certainly if your questions don't get answered throughout this, you can always reach out to Matthew and I or anyone else that you're seeing in the chat. This chat, also the transcript will be posted after on the recording, wherever the recording is posted. So we can always reference back to this. So graduating students looking to continue in the field as all places are on hiring freezes. Yes, I know I was just talking to a few of my graduating seniors the other day, and that's the hugest point of conversation is how do you stay positive when you're going into a hiring freeze space for post-grad. So all good things to be thinking about. So we would be at a loss if we didn't take a quick moment to showcase some work that Matthew and I, along with a large group of colleagues, are working on. We don't have a specific name, but it's a student staff development initiative. So what we're doing is looking to develop a thriving community for the NIRSA network to share best practices and resources regarding student development and training, student staff development and training. This is open to anyone. Your job title does not have to be specifically student staff training and development to join this initiative. We think there is valid contribution from people of all different capacities. Simply, if you're just passionate and want to info share with us and kind of drive this forward with us, we would love to have you join. So go ahead and contact Matthew or Matthew and I if you'd like to get involved, and we'll put you on our running listserv where we share announcements and updates, and there'll be more updates to come in the future on
So we also want to talk about what this roundtable is not. So I know we can often get tied up in HR policies and procedures, and this can sometimes be a headache, especially to those of us that are doing this job on a daily basis. We want to try and take a positive look at what can we be doing, what is in our capacity to do. So I think we're going to try and steer away from those discussions a little bit. We also don't want this to be a prescriptive guide to student development. So like Chrissy said, student development is not a one size fits all for students, nor is it that way for institutions. And so we are not going to say that what works at Ohio State is going to work at UC Berkeley, is going to work anywhere else. And in the same way, somebody may have a preferred student development theory or more knowledge about that. That doesn't mean that somebody else is doing something incorrectly. But this is just a place to safely share resources and things that have worked well for us.
Okay, so on the agenda for today, we're going to talk about remote employment during COVID-19. We are also going to talk about supporting students in crisis. And then if we have time, talking about life post-COVID-19. I know there's been some comments in the chat about what does the new normal look like when we go back to the fall semester. And then I know a topic on all of our minds is how do we ensure that we have students to kind of run the facilities when we go back to being online, whenever that happens. And then certainly we want to leave it open for your ideas as well, to talk about whatever's on your mind. So I've seen a lot of things come through in the chat, so we'll be sure to try and target those. But that's kind of what's on our minds, and it seems like it's very close to what's on y'all's minds for today. So that's what we're going to be doing.
All right, so we are going to attempt something new here. I don't know if this has been done in NIRSA roundtable history, but we're going to attempt to do some breakout rooms. So if you are a recent Zoom user like I am, this might scare you a little bit, but we luckily have Nick from NIRSA headquarters to kind of help us out. So the idea is that, you know, there's now about 270 of you on this call. And we want to make these an inclusive conversation and be able to have everybody kind of share ideas. And so we are going to try and break up these rooms into 5 to 7 people. And for you all to be sharing some ideas about what does employment look like during this pandemic outbreak. So we're going to take 15 minutes in these rooms. Myself, Chrissy, Chet, Dottie, and Greg will also be serving as facilitators during this. But please note that not the vast majority of rooms will not have facilitators. So it's kind of up to you all to keep the conversation going. We may be popping in and out to kind of hear what are some great ideas that are being shared. But be prepared at the end of the conversations when we do come back together as a group to kind of share out some of the takeaways from that. So what we're asking you to accomplish during these breakout rooms is first, obviously, introduce yourself to everybody that's in the room with you. Some of the questions that we thought might be worth tackling are, what is the status of student employment at your institution? What does remote student work look like right now? It may have looked different in the past. I know it's changing for me. And then what technology are you utilizing? You can even start talking about what challenges do you have, like we heard some people talking about for wrapping up student experiences, end of year celebrations, be sharing some of those things. So we will give you kind of a 15-minute warning. We'll give you a 1-minute warning when rooms are about to close. But Nick is going to go ahead and start breaking you out into rooms here momentarily. And for those of you that are watching the recording after this, please note that you won't be able to see the breakout rooms, but we will come back and share. So you can skip ahead about 15 minutes in the recording. All right, let's go ahead and break out. Hey everybody, welcome back. We're gonna wait a second as the rooms close. There'll still be a few more seconds. So if you're coming back in, if you don't mind muting your microphone right now, I may have brought you back in and you're still unmuted. I think we mostly have everybody back. So I know we have a few of our facilitators out there. So Dottie, Greg, and Chet, or Chrissy. If you don't mind saying a little bit of like what your room talked about, what were some highlights or takeaways you'd like to share with the group?
I can go ahead and start if that's okay.
Thanks, Dottie.
Cool. Starting off, what I thought was really interesting, just with the status of student work. Some universities offered like a 2-week period where they are still paying students, even if they aren't working. Similar with work study, that they are kind of paying out that pay, even if students aren't actually having hours worked. And something with our university at Ohio University, I don't know if it was the division that we're in or the entire university, I can't remember, but we were required to ask and offer every student that wanted to work. We were required to provide them with work. So that was definitely something really interesting and unique to talk about, just how universities are doing that so differently, and being able to provide that work and figuring out what that means. And that kind of continues into what we talked about next, is that it just felt like people are just trying to come up with whatever they can come up with still at this point. Definitely a lot of kind of resetting, reviewing different operating procedures, having students kind of weigh in on those and those processes. Also, a lot of professional development was a common theme in our group as well, which was also interesting that some universities have limitations on what their seniors can do, just because they are leaving and moving on, and what development they are almost allowing their seniors to do. But something we are doing specifically at Ohio University as well is we have categorized all of the work that our students are doing into continued operations, planning and preparing for the future, and then professional development, and having them kind of log that each week to keep track of what they're working through. But those were pretty much the main points in our group that we discussed.
Okay, great. How about Chet? Did you have some main themes that you wanted to share?
Yeah, to add into that, we talked a little bit about how we might engage with students if we're unable to pay them, whether those are through game nights that other students are kind of working on planning or things like that, or finding ways to engage with rule changes or reviewing old content and things like that. How we kind of stay in contact with some of our students who have kind of dropped off. Sometimes they go home and you can't really find them. So different ways we might continue to think about that. A little bit on, when we restart, what is our approach going to be? And I think the general consensus is we don't really know until we hear from the environmental health and safety teams about what is the appropriate responses, but there'll definitely be probably some policy changes that we'll have to find ways to teach our students and get them onboarded. And I think a huge thing that people are thinking about, but not a lot are talking about, is the impact it's going to have on kind of the cultures of our student staff. From me, my own thought on that. This is usually a big hiring time where we're promoting students into new opportunities and giving them the opportunity to kind of expand and grow professionally in terms of those managerial skills. And doing it without that face-to-face interaction and the immediate feedback might make that a little challenging. So I think from development spaces, thinking about communication skills in a new way is something we're going to continue to do. So.
Thanks, Chet. I also see Jason Darby writing in the chat about kind of what you're talking about, like culture and, you know, potentially losing people because they may take another job at this point. I think for a lot of us, student staff retention is a big concern. So Jason, if I could put you on the spot, if you wouldn't mind either unmuting or chatting in the chat box, is there any ideas you have or any ideas anybody else has that might help with student staff retention at this time?
Sure. The specific area I mentioned in our breakout room, we talked about it, is our lifeguard staff. We've had issues in the past with retention with that group in general. The only benefit that I have currently is all the community pools and areas that would be paying them more during this time are also closed down. So that's the only thing that's really working in our favor on that. But that, like I said, that's a concern that these students would get another job in the short term. We do not pay them above minimum wage unless they have a certification for most positions. And so that's very easy, especially in this time, to get a job somewhere else that does that. So biggest thing we've been doing with our staff is encouraging our professional staff to at least weekly still check in with their student staff. Try to do it from a support method, not just a, hey, we want to make sure you still want to work for us, but, you know, check in on them. This is just enough of a hard time for them as it is us trying to figure all this out. But, you know, keeping them, you know, in contact with them. So if they do get other opportunities, other positions, stress them. We're still willing to work with them when they come back. But that is, like I said, a major concern for us, is that we may lose a good amount coming back. And then with us not really being able to hire right now, replacing them, you know, if we were to have to open next week or whenever that magical date is, it's going to be pretty tough on the spot. So we may have to look at alternate hours or kind of a slow roll opening when we get to that point.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jason. I know that, you know, finding community is probably one of the best ways you can aim to keep students on your staff. Obviously, this is a time where we don't even know when it will end, nor what the transition back will look like. So it's important to keep in touch with students. But I think this is a problem we face even during the school year, right? So how do we keep students employed with us when trying to communicate all the extra benefits beyond just a paycheck that they can receive? So how can we think about communicating the potential learning that happens in our space that may not happen in an off-campus student position?
Yeah. Something that I just saw that came into the chat, Nick Rodriguez put out a intent to return survey that helped him gauge near accurate numbers of which of the current staff would return. That's, I mean, I know for us, you know, we're always looking at ways to retain, but then also this is its own unique opportunity or situation, like everyone has been echoing. So I thought that was a cool idea.
I can discuss what was in our group.
Yeah,
I actually
great,
happened.
thanks.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is Greg with, I was in the group with Jason also actually, and he did a great job kind of covering, that was what we finished on, was our plan to return to operation. And we didn't really get to have everyone talk about it. And a lot of what we discussed kind of had been talked about by Dottie as well. But I know one of the things that we're doing is holding scheduling meetings virtually for the month of May and for part of the summer, now that we have established who's going to be here, because that's really the only thing that we can do right now to have things ready to go. Because as mentioned, I know some of the people in our group, and something that we're experiencing at the University of Utah is we don't know when we're going to reopen, and if we're going to be given time before we do open to guests to train staff that would have been trained over the last few weeks if they're new hires for the summer. So just trying to create certainty through creating a schedule so the students do know what it'll look like when they do return, even if that schedule may not be actualized until possibly June. So.
Awesome, thanks, Greg. I know there's a ton of other things that we could talk about, and I do want to at least talk about what we were talking about for students kind of completing or wrapping up their experiences. So a lot of the times this year, we are thinking about how do we hold end of year celebrations or awards. So what are some other ideas people have to think of unique out of the box opportunities to kind of recognize our students, especially because we have Student Employee Appreciation Week coming up. What were some ideas that were floated around?
Hello, it's Douglas from Western Kentucky University. We're actually trying to decide on our plan of action there. 3 of the options that were floated out there is we typically do a graduation banquet where we recognize our graduates. So we were discussing potentially replacing that with either one long video, where during our graduation banquet, each direct supervisor, so the assistant director and whoever they report to, gets up and speaks to their value to the department and the impact that they made on the department. So creating either a one long video acknowledging all graduates, an area specific video so that they can go in and see the videos about the folks that they worked with. And if they choose to, go in and see the videos about their friends in other areas as well. So it's not, you know, a 45-minute long video. Or actually completing the graduation celebration via Zoom so that we are all live and in there together. There were a lot of different opinions and things from those in the department. So we've actually decided to send that out to the students and allow them to pick how we celebrate them and their preference of it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Candace. Those are great ideas. I think I love the idea about, you know, turning this into, a lot of things are just going virtual, but I'm also thinking about, I don't know a whole lot about making videos, but this is something I can have my students help on as well. So how can they help compile videos to appreciate them? I saw Jillian in the chat sharing an idea about senior dinner. So, you know, you can even get students and their families together with your staff to sit down and just eat together and share a meal via Zoom. I think that's a cool way to still kind of be intimate with your staff. Okay, well, we are very quickly running out of time. And so I do want to get to some other subjects that we have. So I'm actually gonna change subjects kind of abruptly and hand it over to Chrissy.
Okay, so one, I'd like to say I'm also kind of following along in the chat and I'm just loving all these ideas. I think for me, you know, it's a few part situation at the end of the year, right? So we have our graduating staff, but then we also have the sport club and IM banquets that typically probably are held as well. So it's about identifying as well ways to enact those. So anyways, even if it's not solely just for our student employees, it's exciting to see all this innovation and idea happening in the chat. So wanted to pivot to supporting students in crisis. So I think we can all identify that in some capacity, our students are likely in some sort of crisis. So how are we engaging and sharing resources with our student employees? So I think I saw someone in the chat, and I wish I could go through, but there's so many exciting ideas being shared so at such a rapid rate. But someone was saying that they were reaching out and sharing resources similar to this. So I think someone mentioned something about showcasing the food pantry that they have on their campus and things like that. But feel free to add to the chat or go ahead and chime in. Perhaps how you're going about not oversaturating their already saturated email inbox, but staying connected with your student employees. Okay, so I know for us, it's something that I'm toying with, and I was calling, we have a student staff development council, which I'm assuming some of you have as well. But we were talking about, you know, how do we as a department showcase support, or do we do it on a unit specific level? So that could also be with the start of the conversation is it a departmental email essential, or is it better for supervisor to, you know, unit supervisor to staff? So I see some ideas coming in. Let's see, social media and other platforms, great. Some universities have a We Care program. Yeah, we have a very similar program, a wellness kit from Student Affairs on their website. That's a great idea. A weekly newsletter to all the team members, great. Tommy, loving the idea of the one-on-one conversations via Skype. And then a resource page. Yeah, I think that's great. Does anyone want to unmute themselves and share ideas?
Hey guys, my name is Alexis Johnson and I attend Texas Southern University. And one way that we're staying connected is we use this app called Basecamp. So that's how we like stay connected, and we have like daily check-ins, like what did you do today, or what are you doing this week? What did you read? So it keeps us connected, and it also tracks our hours because we do have to still submit a timesheet because we're still getting paid. So I think it's a nice, fun way to stay connected. It's an app, like it's 2020, we all know how to work apps. So I think it's cool and productive.
Great.
I
Thank you
also
so
have
much.
one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Patricia Shaw from University of West Georgia. I am the graduate assistant of operations and student development. So I oversee a smaller staff than probably what everyone else is kind of used to. So we have about 9 to 10, 11 on a good semester. Building managers that I oversee. And so one way that I found to really help keep myself engaged with them and keep them engaged with what we have going on is GroupMe. And so they essentially had like a manager group me with how they were able to communicate with each other to trade shifts, pick up shifts, keep each other up to date on any updates. And so adding myself to that group as well during this crisis of a time to kind of be able to more quickly be able to check in on them. We do morning affirmations on there sometimes. My supervisor just sent out an email here recently about the pulse check. So sending in the different colored hearts to kind of let your supervisors know where you are today, what your mood is for today, things of that sort. So we found GroupMe to be really helpful in keeping our students engaged over with everything going on.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm just seeing like so many great suggestions in the chat. I know Nick Rodriguez, you were writing that you invited staff from Health Promotion Services to present to some of the student leaders. I just think that's so great. Would you might be comfortable either sharing in the chat or sharing by unmuting yourself, kind of like how many students were, or how many of your student leaders were in on that call? And then how that all came about?
Hey, yeah, joining in via voice here. I'm Nick Rodriguez at the University of Florida, and within our recreational sports department, we also have Gatorwell Health Promotion Services. So we're kind of collective, but we also have separate identities as departments. So one of our teams, actually, this wasn't my team, but a colleague who oversees our recreation managers, which is a smaller team of about 10 to 12, invited the Health Promotion Services staff to kind of do what would typically be an in-service. It's like typically what we would do in a normal situation, but just had them present virtually via Zoom to his team of those rec managers. I'm just talking about like staying well and healthy during these unprecedented times, and how do we manage our time while we're sitting at home all day and still focusing on school as well as other things. One challenge we're battling in making something like that effective on our broader scale with all of our students is that we aren't able to pay our students currently. So something like that would totally be voluntary. So we're trying to entice them with meaningful, useful topics, but also connecting them to the campus experts that we would typically want to invite them to a staff meeting anyways.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Would anyone else like to unmute themselves and share perhaps some noteworthy items in terms of sharing resources or other departments that you've been partnering with to provide support?
Some things that we've recently kind of went over here at Arizona State University. One of my colleagues is launching a LinkedIn Academy. So we're doing a lot of professional development prep and stuff that's going to, again, like very many others that are trying to reach out to our students and keep them engaged. LinkedIn Academy is going to be geared largely around professional development. Obviously creating a professional profile that helps you to stand out, resume and cover letter writing, as well as interviewing skills. And that's all going to be done over Zoom. That's something that we're launching, I believe, this Thursday, if not next Monday. And that's going to go on for the rest of the semester. This isn't a paid opportunity. I wish it could be, but We do have like 40 students that have already registered from throughout our department that are looking forward to getting that professional development, a lot of them being seniors and juniors. So looking forward to being able to give them that opportunity and hopefully give them something that they can take past working in recreation.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Dimitri. Okay, so we can pivot quickly. I know our time is limited, so we'll just spend a quick minute or two. So we've been talking a lot about professional development opportunities, but also wanted to focus on opportunities or support for graduating seniors. I think, like we've been discussing, they're really the ones that are being the hardest hit by this right now. Of course, everyone is being super hard hit, but then, or perhaps we switch. It's okay, Matthew. So yeah, so opportunities for the graduating seniors, just spending maybe a few minutes on that. And if anyone wants to unmute themselves and share or just chat in, I know it's something that's on the top of my mind as we kind of look at how to best support them in their professional journeys, whether they're going into rec sports or not, or looking for a GA ship or not.
This is Miles from Oregon State University. And one thing we're trying to do is to connect our current students, especially our seniors, with our alumni, in particular our recent alumni, maybe 2 or 3 years out. So we're going to be doing Throwback Thursday talks, where we just do a quick 5-minute or so interview and post it online, just to provide some encouragement. There's some questions prompted on how are you getting through this? How are you staying positive, and what are some things that you wish you would have known just a couple years ago? And they're just far enough out where they have some professional experience, but they also have some familiarity with the current staff. So we're trying that out. We'll see if it lands.
Awesome, thanks, Miles. Okay. Lost the Zoom call. Okay. Wow, awesome. Christian Washington, hosting a virtual roundtable with our Vice Chancellor along with current professionals to get some ideas and questions answered. That's real exciting. I wish that we could swing that one. I think that'd be a big ask, but I think that's great. So I think we're at a place where I think we can pivot to the next slide. So I know we've talked about this kind of throughout this entire conversation, is how we transition back. And I think a lot of the answer is, or a lot of the space right now is, we don't know. Because it's just such an infinite space that we're in, that we don't know when it's going to happen. But, wanted to create space to continue to share those ideas that perhaps we all have in terms of transitioning back once programs are running again. I know a lot of articles that I've been reading have been about also, like, once we return back, social distancing and things like that won't go away. So then how do we also ensure that we're able to build community with our student staff when we get back to business as normal?
So I can share something we're starting to work on. We were already planning on kind of revamping our entire approach to our all staff training in the fall when our students come back, where we've done more of larger breakouts going over some like big areas, whether it's communication, risk management, that kind of a thing. But one of the things we've been talking about for 4 or 5 years is trying to give all of our students an opportunity to experience some kind of professional conference. And so what we're doing now is we're starting to have conversations with a lot of our graduating seniors about what they wish they would have learned or how at those trainings and those kinds of things. And some of our rising, kind of third years who we see kind of taking on some more leadership, to engage them and say, how would you want to train with us? What would you want to train? And we'll really give our students more of an opportunity to start with that. So that way we can say, here's our new changes, but also here's how we're continuing to grow as an organization. So we're making it very much more student generated than we have in the past.
That's awesome. Thanks, Chet. We just have another minute or two, so I just want to make sure that we have the space for others too. Also, maybe at this point, ask any questions that you haven't heard answers to yet, or pose questions to the group. That can either be done via the chat or is by unmuting yourself.
I'm just going to put a small shameless plug in, but I know that especially with graduating seniors, I know that bluefishjobs.com has been great. I'm a second year graduate assistant. That's where I kind of found my place here, moving from Minnesota to Georgia. And we're hiring, and I know that students don't always know that this is a specific site for if they really love what they do. So even just reminding them that there's jobs being posted. I know we're looking to hire GAs. I know a lot of places, even in our state, we're really promoting like GA ships and the positions that are open because we know we need to fill those. So if you have seniors who like what they do, or they're just looking maybe for a next step, a great place to send them to with Bluefish Jobs.
Yeah, I like what Christina, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And Bluefish is definitely a great space to go. I know that, so Christina Rodriguez just wrote in the chat, encouraging seniors to go back to school. So I know I was just reading this morning, I think a lot of schools are waiving the GRE or waiving the fees or something like that. So I know that's something when I talked to my council last week, that was what I think half of the rising or the graduating seniors were choosing to do was go back to school. So, you know, that's definitely a good thing to look at, and GA ships as well. Great to know. So with that, I know we're in our final minute or two. So we want to thank you all for your time today. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Matthew or I. And go ahead and ask us, you know, feel free to continue to ask us about the Student Develop Initiative and the future of that work. We're in a really exciting place. So I would love for y'all to reach out to Matthew and I about that. And just get involved with the work that we're doing. If you're interested in student staff development, I know I've been learning a lot through this work that we've been doing. There's a lot of resource sharing that happens, and you get to work with a lot of really cool NIRSA network members. So anyway, thank you all for your time today. And I hope you all just have the best day, or remainder of the day, depending on where in the US you are.
Thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks to Chet, Chrissy, Dottie, Greg, we appreciate it, and to Nick from NIRSA headquarters.
Yeah, thank you to everyone. Y'all have been wonderful.